Pivot to Peace is a response to the rising tide of hostility towards China in the United States on the part of the American government. There's been a series of phases of development of this that spanned both the Obama and now the Trump administration. And the latest version of this, the latest articulation of this, was in a document issued on May 20th called the U.S. Strategic Approach to the People's Republic of China. And this is it's a very interesting document, 16 pages, laying out American official policy, perceptions of China, and a program for addressing what it presents as its concerns. And basically, it's a portrayal of China as a threat, as an aggressive and expansive power, undermining the position of the United States. When we read this document, there's a kind of feel of an almost Orwellian doublespeak going on, because the document essentially projects onto China the same kinds of motives and actions that have characterized American international conduct for many, many decades. It is the United States, after all, which has a globe-spanning network of military bases, including bases encircling China. It is the United States which has sought, especially since the end of World War II, to impose its own norms on the global community in terms of business operations, financial interactions, even technologies, as the conflict over Huawei and 5G technologies symbolizes today. And the United States has arrogated to itself for a long time the right to police the world, to enforce American interests and American ideas about a properly ordered world on peoples all around the planet. The reality of China is rather different. The reality of China is that China has always articulated under the People's Republic positions of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries and mutual respect for territorial integrity. China has concentrated for the last 70 years on its domestic development, on enhancing the lives of its own people, and it has focused primarily on the elimination of poverty and on economic development, lifting over 800 million people out of poverty into a better life, the greatest campaign of improvement in human livelihood in history. Seeing China as an adversary, as an enemy, this is just not in line with China's actual conduct and behavior in the world. The United States continues to promote its own campaigns of interference, distorting the realities of life in China, interfering in places like Tibet and Xinjiang, actively in being involved in promoting public unrest and dissent in Hong Kong through agencies like the National Endowment for Democracy, and by imposing its own military standards, including the so-called freedom of navigation, provocative voyages in the South China Sea. The U.S. Strategic Approach to the People's Republic document lays out a program that involves all kinds of initiatives. It involves economic, certainly many military programs, cultural initiatives, all designed to both portray China, to demonize China, to make China out to the American people as a force that's adverse to their own interests. As an academic, I find one of the most disturbing parts of this document to be the way in which it subordinates academia, supposedly the bastion of freedom of investigation and freedom of expression, to American national policy. The document lays out the objectives of controlling the discourse about China, controlling the flow of information about China. And we can see this in recent actions, such as the shutting down across the country of Confucius Institutes at many universities. And now this current campaign to demonize Chinese international students and scholars coming to America to study and do research. the closing off of these opportunities, the neo-isolationism of the current leadership does not bode well for promoting understanding and friendship, which is a much more viable and desirable future than one of ongoing conflict. Indeed, as Americans, we should see China's rise as a moment of opportunity. China is emerging once again, returning to patterns that have deep historical precedents, patterns of being a major player in its region, a center of productivity, a center of cultural and intellectual efflorescence, and we should welcome that. As Americans, we should want and hope and seek to work together with the Chinese, rather than to allow our political elites and media pundits to drive a wedge of hostility and anxiety between the American and the Chinese people. The United States is on the verge of becoming a failed state, and in many ways, we can see that played out most clearly in the pathetic response to the COVID-19 crisis on the part of a country and a system that treats health as a commodity, as a profit-generating center, rather than a human right, a basic right, which is how it's been treated in China. In essence, then, what we need to work for is a pivot to peace, a pivot away from a path that leads to war. Our future as Americans, our future as citizens of planet Earth should be bound up intimately and in links of friendship and cooperation with that of China, rather than through the aggressive hostility promoted by the American government. Thank you.